Hello, I'm FPX Toycat, and a lot of people have been asking this week about the end poem news which dropped. If you don't know, the creator of the iconic end poem did something really clever, which means you and I now officially own that iconic part of Minecraft. But do we actually is the more interesting question, with a more interesting answer, because there are some weird discrepancies in the contract which has been made public. But more interestingly, how is it that someone who made something so huge is unable to pay their rent, as they claim themselves? This is something I wanted to actually dive into and answer today, and so let's do precisely that. So Julian Gao is supposedly the person who wrote the Minecraft end poem. How do we know that? Well, he puts it in his Twitter bio, and he claims that 11 and a bit years ago, he wrote the only bit of written narrative in Minecraft, the story that appears after you kill the Ender Dragon, a narrative which players often call the end poem. Today, I officially liberated that ending. What does that mean? And this is an interesting thread which picked up a lot of momentum. As you can see, over 65,000 likes. It's also been picked up by all sorts of gaming journalism sites without too much of a source about what's going on there, but we'll come back to it later because he says, well, that's a long story. I've written a 10,000 word post explaining everything. The internet groans a terrible groan, and he summarizes the entire thing by saying much of it comes down to the fact that for various reasons, I never signed a contract giving away any rights to my story. They are retained by me. Then he shares this contract with the interesting from Julian Gao to Mojang. The Julian Gao at the top of that contract is in Germany, and the Mojang AB is in Sweden. Interestingly, Germany uses the euro and Sweden uses the Swedish crown, so it's really weird that the payment for this was going to be £1, which is just a nominal fee. It's so a contract can be performed. It's basically him giving away his work for free is what this contract would have done, except he never signed it. He said he quietly refused to sign in 2011, the year I wrote the ending and the game was officially released, and I refused to sign it again with a bit more shouting and general hoo-ha in 2014 when Marcus Persson sold Minecraft to Microsoft for $2.5 billion. I was put under a lot of pressure to sign it, but I never signed it. So Microsoft have never owned the ending to Minecraft. I own it. And from today on, I'm letting anybody play with it. And so he very maturely says he doesn't blame anyone and he's just an artist playing the artist game while they're just a giant corporation playing the capitalism game. He in fact does say that he's going to piss off some giant corporations, and it's kind of a funny thing because the end result is he's giving away the story to everyone. However, the more in-depth story is very, very fascinating. First of all, why is it that he is receiving pounds when he is a German resident receiving money from a Swedish person? Also, why did he write this to begin with? How did you ever get into the place where you are writing a story for free and then manage to get it put in the game despite not signing a contract? And more importantly, what does it mean now that the end poem is officially in the public domain? Anyone can use it, none of the rights are retained by him. Let's answer all of those questions with the slightly longer version of the story, because it all started with this tweet from Notch, which by the way, this and a Boing Boing article from 2012 are the only direct proof that Julian wrote the thing, but it was enough to go with at least for now, because Notch tweeted saying, are you a talented writer? Famous is a plus, who wants to write a silly, over-the-top, out-of-nowhere text for when you win Minecraft. And he actually got recommended to, Notch quite a few times, and then that night Notch emailed him and says, would he write the ending for Minecraft? And he said yes, but he was given an open brief. He could write anything he wanted, and here's the crazy bit, he didn't actually know Minecraft at all at the time. So he asked a couple of questions, like could he code it so the story addressed the player by name? Could he make some of the words look encrypted or obscured in some way? He said yes and yes, no problem. And so he played the game day after day, often alongside his daughter, trying to understand it, trying to understand Marcus's philosophy through it, and trying to understand the essence of Minecraft. And when I felt I knew the things, I wrote the ending. That's right, the creator of the end poem had not played Minecraft before he got the permission to write the ending, and so he panic played it in a week, and then from that understanding, he got the end. And then even crazier is the fact that he wrote 9 minutes, which, Notch said was very long for something that was supposed to scroll up the screen at the end of the game, but he didn't want to change a word, and that was wonderful. One of the most satisfying artistic experiences of my writing life, and so that is just fascinating by itself, right? That he had no idea about Minecraft, but yet he wrote 9 minutes of poem for the end, and actually it's so good that it's one of the best and most iconic bits of Minecraft today. It is one of the real deep parts of the game is when you beat the sandbox and when this whole thing appears, and it seems like it was even written by Notch himself, but it was actually made by an outside writer who had no idea about Minecraft when they started it, which just, that's interesting. So the explanation here is that Carl, who was CEO of Mojang before the Microsoft acquisition, by the way, one of the lesser known Mojang staff, but he had an MBA, and so he negotiated a deal with Julian. And Julian says he had no idea that he was even talking business. He had no idea what the game should be, what his NPoem should be worth, because there was a game with no ending that needed it desperately so it could release, and it was happening real soon. He knew it had sold hundreds of millions of, dollars worth of sales, and so he was questioning what it should be worth. Peanuts and a pizza, $1 million, $1,000 success bonus for every million new sales, and the short version of the story makes it sound like he got nothing in the end. He was only ever going to get that £1, but the long story is that he actually got 20,000 euros, so perhaps a slightly more logical payment. I mean, it sounds great, right? Like a 9-minute piece of work that takes like a week to make on, and you get 20,000 euros, and in exchange you lose the rights to it. That is how they agreed on things. However, he said that he was beyond broke at the time. He desperately needed the money, and it just kind of showed up before the contract had been worked out. So he got his 20,000 euros. He said 7,000 euros paid off his maxed out credit cards, a couple thousand more went onto other outstanding bills, and he ended up with 10,000 euros, which was enough to keep him and his family alive for 6 months in Berlin, while he continued to write his weird novel about computer games and teenagers and the universe and love. Basically, he was making other writing work, and the long story short is he finally got the contract in December, and he was so mad that his work had been used without the contract that he just decided not to sign it without even reading it. And then oh no, so much water. I just spilt my giant 2-liter bottle of water, which is how it must feel if you sell your work for 20,000 euros and then, Minecraft became such a success and it became publicly known that it was going to be sold to Microsoft for $2.5 billion. And, this money obviously going to the Mojang shareholders, being just free people. And so at the time this is happening, he gets a message from Carl saying, hey, by the way, you never signed this contract. It's only for a pound, but can you just give us the rights real quick? You forgot to do that. Oopsie. And so he felt very betrayed because it was being hidden from him that this $2.5 billion deal was the reason why, and they weren't giving him more money for his iconic part of the game. He felt like he was one of the 5 people that created the game. Notch and Jeb making the code, he says. Then there's C418 and the music. There's the guy who made the paintings. And then there's him. He feels like he's one of the top 5 guys. And yet, unlike all of those other people with their $120,000 bonuses on top of their salaries, on top of their Mojang shares that are now going to be selling for ludicrous amounts, that he was being offered nothing. So he just refused to sign the contract. He actually said he didn't even read the contract because he was so mad. And then he says, this led to his friendship with Marcus going downhill, and then eventually even his wife leaving him for partially financial reasons. Again, he was very artist-driven and not very money-driven. And then he felt like it got even worse because after the Microsoft acquisition, which went through without the contract being signed, what eventually happened is Notch became very, very wealthy. $1.8 billion roughly, and he bought a very nice mansion, and he'd spend a couple of $100,000 on a night out flying to Vegas for a private party or whatever, and he felt like, whoa, Notch is being spending all this money from this big thing that he made that at least is partially the creation of this guy who is having severe money issues, can't afford to buy his kids shoes, and hopefully you can see the disconnect there and why he'd be bitter about it, even if it was, maybe him not signing a contract. He feels like, wow, I made this big mistake. And in case you're wondering if he's a super young guy that got exploited, it turns out he was born in 1966, funnily enough, near Heathrow Airport in London, so I guess that explains the British connection. Although when he was 7, he moved to Ireland, and he's famous for being in a Galway-based band where he has quite a few famous songs, but those were from the 1980s, so he's age 55. He's age 56 even, you can assume. He's been in this game for a while. He's just so art-driven and he's never focused on the money, which can lead to some issues like what you're explaining right here. So he actually said he was very bitter for a very long time about the entire thing. The only reason he's so calm is he explains it all and says like, oh wow, yeah, Notch has this mansion and spends $200,000 a night and I can't even keep a marriage down. The reason that he's got this calmness about it is he says that he went to this building in the Netherlands, the Nature Temple, where he did a heroic dose of mushrooms, and then the mushrooms made him realize that he needed to go look at his own poem again, and the poem says, the universe loves you because you are love, so stop hiding from love, and his conclusion is he should liberate the poem and make it public domain. He does own the rights, he never officially gave them up, and so he's putting them out there into the public for everyone to use, which means any one of us can now remix this outside of Minecraft, and we can use it, and Microsoft cannot sue us. And honestly, I think that's the happy part of the story. I think there's a real truth to the fact that because the person who made the story says it is public domain, I guess it sort of is. However, there is a really interesting asterisk in there, which is when he was asked to sign the contract in 2014. It was a very big deal to Carl, the CEO of Mojang, that he signed this contract because when Microsoft was asking about buying Mojang, they wanted to make sure they owned everything. And so they made it a very big deal that he signed this contract so that it could be covered. But then after he didn't, they just said, oh yeah, it turns out we think we have the rights anyway, and so does Microsoft. And so that's the interesting thing, right? Microsoft themselves seem to believe that they own the rights because they felt like the email correspondence between Carl and the writer Julian was totally enough. And so is that the more important factor? I mean, it's this interesting thing about, like, you can say you're not breaking the law all you like, but if the police arrest you, you're gonna run into some problems. And in another world, I have used the Minecraft trademark in an unfair way. I wrote a really bad book a long time ago. It had Minecraft in the title, and as soon as Microsoft acquired Mojang, they struck the book, and it didn't go, there wasn't a legal court battle we had to fight. They just have the power on these platforms to remove things that are against their will. And so ultimately, even if we can say we all own the rights, is it actually true? And this is the bit where I don't like to say, yeah, all of these news sites are talking about how we own the end poem. Even the title of this video is much more compelling to say we all own a bit of Minecraft now, because we all do. However, do we actually? Here's the real information if you try to remove Julian as the subject from it. Minecraft asked if anyone would write a poem for them to put in the game. Julian said that he would. He went through a lot of technical processes, but they did the thing together. They wrote the poem. They both agreed it would go in the game and how it would do so. And then later, Minecraft paid Julian 20,000 euros. 20,000 euros he didn't send back because he said, oh, we haven't agreed on this yet. He took the payment, the consideration, and he didn't ever contest. He didn't ever challenge. He didn't ever say he was harmed by its inclusion in the game, and so it would be a real hard thing for him to argue that Mojang didn't own the rights and it couldn't legally go in Minecraft. But even so, obviously he can't sue them for damages. That's why he's never even considered doing so, even if he was that way inclined. So the more interesting question is, can he then take the rights for this work and say they're everyone's forever now? Can he abscond his own rights to something so big? Because make no mistake, this is the biggest thing he's done. On his Wikipedia page, when it comes to like things he's known for, the big thing that comes up is creating the end poem in Minecraft. This is what Wikipedia seems to think is his biggest contribution, and that might sound harsh, but if you check his own Twitter, it's also the biggest thing he thinks that he has done. And so the interesting question as to whether he can put those rights public is, I don't know, let's find out what happens. However, when it comes to copyright, you might think, oh, if I just put in there I own the copyright, I guess I do. However, when Microsoft bought Mojang, just for a story to remind you that law is not exactly how things are enforced. I had a terrible book. I'm not that proud of it, but I wrote a book that had Minecraft somewhere in the title, and Microsoft, when they bought Mojang, they just removed the book from all stores. They had that ability. There was no legal process involved. They just could strike it away because Microsoft has a good relationship with all these companies, and so it was gone. I didn't have to defend myself in a court of law. I didn't get to defend myself in a court of law. They just decided you can't do that, and it's gone. If you try to use the end poem yourself or to alter it in some way, and Microsoft decides they don't like it, does it really matter about the legal case of who really owns it? I think ultimately it would be proven that, yeah, this is popularized through Minecraft, you know it from Minecraft, and so isn't it at least partially Minecraft that you're referencing and you're maybe damaging by stealing their poem? I don't know for sure how it would go in your court, in your part of the world. I just know that even though it sounds real good, it's also kind of not. Also, this story gets kind of sad if you go into it any deeper, because he put out a donation page after the virality so that people could give him money if they liked the end poem, and a lot of people did, and then it turns out that too many people donated, so he got his PayPal shut down. And even more interesting is that he clarifies that the money is like desperately needed, that he's been struggling with rent otherwise, and it's just the most fascinating tale of like, yeah, this is a story of art versus business. There is the interesting thing about how we own Minecraft in there, but if you look at the entire thing, it is the world of art going up against the world of business, and it's a reminder that you should have someone represent you if you make art and don't care about business, because although you can not care about business all you like, you do have to pay for rent or your children's shoes or, you know, keeping your family happy at some point. That is hopefully a lesson from this too. But it's also an important reminder to stand up for yourself. If you're an artist and you're producing something and you feel like it's worth millions and you're getting 20,000 and, you know, like you feel like it would definitely be worth millions if you just said it, maybe you should just say it. I think there's a really important lesson in there. I'm not trying to criticize the guy. He had a great time. He went on his wonderful mushroom trip, and it sounds like he's is all worked out and happy internally. However, the value in things like this is in learning from past mistakes. Speaking of past mistakes, by the way, just to make sure it's technically Q&A Saturday, day one of asking Toycat for Seed Sunday to come back. Seed Sunday is coming back tomorrow. I haven't been able to do it for a while because honestly, I found a seed that I think just peaked Seed Sunday, but I finally found a few that blew my mind even more. This is the next level of Seed Sunday and it's coming tomorrow. And then the next one here is, are you going to do another 100-day stream to see if you can get to 100 days? This is my official announcement that on December the 23rd, I will be streaming 100 days in Minecraft, but all 100 days. A 17-hour stream on December the 23rd. It's going to be crazy. I look forward to seeing you over there when that happens. And so yeah, this whole story is an important one that hopefully taught you something about the battle between art and business and the important way it is to be represented by someone with your interests at heart. And also it taught you that you can subscribe to this channel if you want to see more weird Minecraft deep dives. This has been a fun time and I hope you enjoyed it, because I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.